I would get a sense of the reading, it's not really.
What?
Yeah, for like.
How many trees was that? Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And these two. I was sitting next to. I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Just, but yeah. I learned how to do the.
You were so professional. Please, if you should have done
I did change after working on it.
Ah.
Okay, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Oh.
Yes.
Let's sit over here.
I think I can build, you're gonna get on.
Yes.
I think I can fill some of the settings.
Hi, I'm pretty good, Betsy. How's chaos going for you?
Chaos going for me.
Yeah.
Well, it's not chaos, but it's kind of rush. What chaos are you referring to?
Well, I always think of, I think it's James Bill, your husband.
Oh.
You know, with all the pitches and how that you're doing.
He's much better.
Oh, good.
He's much
Then do that. Yeah. Actually, my hair dries this afternoon because we had, you would enjoy this actually. There's an exhibit up at Man Library this afternoon. And it's on, it's hard to find, but there's.
I brought this
is a
along
sign
to,
for it.
make sure I wasn't
And
chilling.
there's some fun stuff. Some of it's tongue in cheek, some of it's one woman actually. Do this, another. Yeah, and some of them are really working, but it's fun to find, it's actually fine.
Trying to take out the.
Yes.
And try to do that and get it in. I feel like I'm in the midst of a big press conference here.
Yeah, well, maybe we won't use all of these, but.
Oh, this is for the visitors.
See, I plans for this year last month.
Right, right. And of course, after all our efforts, I was speaking to the microphone. Oh, wait. Oh.
Mute my computer.
You never know. You could, I could have talked to somebody at the hardware store, 4 days. Sweet. Well, I wish I knew.
Does this work?
That's a fraction.
Let's see, what else do we need to do?
Are you kidding? Let's see, you're not allowed. Yeah, it's pretty, it's all about lung cells, T cells, and memory. So your lymph nodes take over, so you don't have, but these are looking. So, you know, I can have instructions.
What do we need to do to get the audio? What do we need to do to get the audio right? I don't, is it okay?
infections when you're sick, so if I got COVID.
Okay.
that would be different. Something else.
Oh, yes.
Right.
So, certainly you can see it.
Yeah.
Well,
Look at that. I like the way Janice is kind of a ghost on that. You know,
It lasted a while.
pretty feverish.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
over here.
Karen, I don't know what it's.
Yeah.
Didn't know what we had.
Right. I remember. And then Leslie's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
First time. It was absolutely blown away. The second time she didn't even know she had it.
I don't want to stop it.
Yeah.
Oh, how many is it, Quorum? Just out of curiosity.
5
for us.
5 out of 10.
5 out of 9.
We don't have 10, we have 9. We don't even actually have 9,
I didn't think so.
but we could have
We
9.
could have 9.
I wondered.
Yeah.
Just the other day.
If Ann would just acquiesce and join us.
Yeah, we're working on that. Okay,
All right.
so I call the meeting to order. The Zoom is set up. Do we have a co-host yet? Is Jonathan a
No,
co-host?
well,
I don't see myself.
I'm a host.
Is Janice Edelman, let me in, is that, please let me.
I just let you in.
You did.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let me see. I think it's in participants. Who shall we make a co-host?
It's down.
Here yet. I said you could come in.
Are we recording, Joel?
Yes. Okay. Let's turn the recording back on. And I don't see, I could have sworn I let you in, John, but I don't see you here. Still waiting?
My computer crawls to.
It's not that you're in the waiting room where you said, waiting for the host to let you in. Is that where you are? I don't think so. You were there.
All right, well, we won't worry about that too much right
No, I
now.
can't name a co-host, so,
Right,
I think we're probably okay anyway.
okay. So
Since I'm hardwired.
the agenda, I think hearing from John and then talking about the easement abatement are the most important things. And then, well, I guess we'll just whip through. I suspect that, we'll have more to talk about on some items and, less on others. So,
Where's the, oh, there it is. Conservation of tax abatement. Number 2.
who read the minutes?
Read it.
Okay,
Do we have privilege to the floor or
excuse me?
privilege of the floor?
Oh, I thought we did that. Oh, we do approval of minutes. I'm sorry, Ann.
Yeah,
yes.
Rhonda.
So, Rhonda, have you got, things that you want to bring to our attention this week? You have to unmute her.
She's muted.
Yes. It's on my way back to the,
I think Rhonda is trying to say something.
She is. We're getting her unmuted.
um,
There you go. Sorry.
I just wanted to suggest that you think about having a spring event. And I was thinking that maybe I haven't been to all of the easement sites, but maybe a place like Dan Hoffman's might be nice to be open for a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon in the spring when all the birds and wildflowers are out, and have a table set up with maybe a brochure and people there to answer questions and somebody else to lead a walk, just to get the whole town involved in something like that. And if you were going to do something like that, you would need to start talking about it now and getting the property owner involved. So that's my only suggestion. Have a nice night.
Okay, thank you. Rhonda, what was the event that this was going to occur in?
She's not gonna hear you unless you take.
Rhonda, what was the event this was going to occur in?
Spring event.
Spring
I don't
event?
know what that means.
Well, she
Yeah,
wants
some kind of spring
event in the
celebration.
spring,
An
yeah.
easement walk,
An
Yeah.
easement walk.
it's somebody's easement.
We talked about this before, you know, having a gathering for easement holders.
Yeah.
And it sounds like what Ron is suggesting is that it'd be
This is public.
open to everybody so they can see what, you know, what easements have to offer and look at one of the ones that we brought, that
We
we got.
could have refreshments to attract people.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Joel can bring the Mai Tai since he's already on the beach.
What?
Joel.
With your background.
Yes, I know, yeah.
Okay.
I figured out how to create the background, but I can't figure out how to uncreate it.
Okay, Ann, do you have anything to bring up? Okay, thank you. Now, I'll back to the minutes. I move we approve them.
Assuming that my suggestions were agreeable to Betsy. It says, assuming that my suggestions were agreeable to Betsy,
Incorporated, yes.
okay, then I'd be happy to second that.
Okay, we're ready to vote.
So.
Oh, you did? You beat me
Do
to it?
we,
Oh, you were going to?
I thought it did, but if you did it first, then
No, yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah.
who seconded?
moved and seconded.
I moved,
Oh,
Joel seconded.
okay. Sorry, hold on a second. This is. All right, we'll go around the room. Are you in favor?
I abstain.
You
I
abstain?
just-
Oh,
Yeah, it's been.
You can count on.
Yes.
Usually do.
Okay.
Very bad. Very busy.
Okay, I assume that means that you got your furniture done or something.
Mostly, and then the day drivers, it just was a whole lot of hum. Day driving my granddaughter.
yeah, nobody's gonna hear you without a microphone.
Well, that's fine, it's probably.
Okay. Renee?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Corbin?
Yes.
Joel?
Yeah.
Okay. Unanimous, except for one abstainer.
That is not unanimous.
Name?
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the status of the DEC meeting with on the timber harvest law. And I believe that Jonathan and Don were, I know that you two were there.
I was there.
And Joel was there.
Yeah.
And Kathy said, that's great.
Yeah, we had a pretty good,
Yeah.
great meeting too.
Good.
And I did get a response from Chris Sprague, the forester, with a lot more information, and I tried to forward that to Corbett, Joel, and Jonathan in hopes somebody would get it and be able to do the Zoho thing. Did any of you get what I tried to send out right after I got it? And
Trying to remember.
Because again, I still haven't been able to access Zoho, and I keep getting told we're gonna be changing that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you want is for it to get filed somewhere as a document?
No.
He can't get it out there. So when he sends you something on your email, I'm sorry, I think he sent it to me too. I mean, I sent it to a loader.
I tried
He's asking us then to forward it.
Right.
to put it on Zoho so people can see.
I think I did. Something. Yeah, I think I did.
Okay, well, if so, that's great, but if not, I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't
Because he was,
let you know.
the regional forester, that Chris Craig that was here was very, I guess, open in sharing, like the town of German has a regulation of logging and mineral extraction activities involving the use of heavy equipment on town roads. He sent a copy of that ordinance, and then he sent quite a bit on the WPP, whatever, the SWIP
Oh, the SWIP,
stuff, and,
yeah.
and what was needed, because that was something that I learned a fair amount about at that meeting.
Mhm.
It had been unclear before, so
Yeah.
there was quite a bit of information.
What does the acronym SWIP stand for?
Joel?
Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. Okay, and so some entities require that you submit that plan prior to harvesting?
He basically said, no, that they don't. That was the federal sort of thing, and the state had its own. Do you remember, Joel, the acronym for the state one? I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, okay. I thought we were using, we in Danby require SWIP for some, level of disturbance
Right, and then,
over half an acre.
yeah, I think it's acre, 1
I
acre.
think it's half an acre,
It could well,
but I could be wrong, but
acre
yeah.
sticks in my mind.
Yeah, okay.
But,
Change things.
But agricultural activities exempt. One of the interesting things that came out of this meeting is that the DC and the state don't regard silviculture as agriculture. Right. That was a mind-boggling thing.
right,
They don't call
Silviculture is not agriculture.
so that according to them, that the whole, ag,
The right,
highway.
the right to farm stuff doesn't apply anyway.
Farm doesn't apply.
Unbelievable.
Except that as in our laws, it's defined. Yeah, that's right. But in our laws, it's defined to include silviculture.
So anyway, there were a number of things that would have a bearing on what some of us should be working on to move this thing ahead.
Okay, so are you going to be in a position then that where you need to go back and redraft based on the input you got from him? Okay.
Some of us are somehow, some way. I have not gone back and made a list up of those items that came up. Another problem was all the comments that they had sent to me never got to me because I don't have Microsoft Word at home. And so I couldn't see them and they couldn't understand why I kept asking them for them. So it was pretty sad the way that communication gap slowed us right down by a good 4 to 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we now have some very valuable input from them.
Great.
And the question is, what are we going to do with it?
Well, we also discussed that some of those comments, they may turn out not to be necessary for us to incorporate. We should-
Right. We don't have to do everything that they basically suggested.
Many, but some of the suggestions are just excellent.
Yeah.
Smooth up.
So somehow we have to get a list of those made up, things
Yeah.
to attend to.
I mean, if you want Joel and me and you to sit down with your comments in front of us, because we were all three, I don't know, Catherine, interested, so maybe you're passionate about it, you've got 20 things on your plate. But we could sit down and just, do the writing, sitting around the table.
Is your mic turned on?
No,
This is relevant to the meeting. And
Right.
when she goes to put listen to the recording, none of what you just said.
Should we who have listened to the DEC and discussed their comments now sit down at a table and incorporate what we decide is worth it or valuable to us?
Yeah, that's obviously a good next step. And the other thing is that you are the guys who, did the lion's share of drafting the law of the people who are still here. Right. So yes, please.
He's the overseer.
Right.
well, I can move things along, but I really like to have other folks involved that can, incorporate things more smoothly.
Right.
I think you should just email us and off Zoho, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just email us and say, hey, who wants to meet? And here's some times that are good for me. You don't even need to do a doodle poll, and we'll all just get together. Here we get together, sit around this table and try to just hammer it out.
We could do it that way. Yeah.
It's
If
in
it's
some
a-
ways, it's more efficient than doing it on a computer, sending it to everybody, putting comments on.
Well, unless you did either
It's
you did what's it called? There's a equivalent to Google Docs.
quicker.
Yeah,
There are
but-
four of us who or five of us who are kind
Yeah.
of discussing whether or not we want to incorporate the commentary, the suggestions, how we want to incorporate it, and hammering out the
Yeah.
wording. It would be quicker to do it all at once.
Yeah.
At a table.
Yeah,
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 for sure.
but I mean, it could be done simultaneously too in the.
Yeah.
meeting
Well, yeah, you could
Done
be,
those,
With
right.
screen sharing.
it works, but it's pretty rough.
What I think considering, you know, that Don's technology assets are not, you know, are a, sort of a barrier that face to face with paper and pen and somebody recording it on the computer makes more sense.
Or perhaps huddled around the computer where we can make
Or
changes on
huddled,
the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, you can,
Or
right, you can
put it up.
project it up onto the screen and then go back and forth.
So that, yeah,
That'd be great.
But,
Who's in this meeting, the subcommittee? It's
well, so far, there's like a committee of three, or four.
I know.
When you, when.
But it's
the meetings are
attended the
arranged,
meeting.
then Don sent out and, or Corbett, then somebody sent out.
Yeah.
Happened and.
Done.
Like, that was done, and
Right.
some of us didn't.
Yeah.
It was interesting, and I would like to come to that meeting.
Cool, okay.
Great.
So Joel, Jonathan, Don, and Catherine were attended the DEC meeting.
Yeah.
And Renee has expressed interest in participating.
oh, yeah, the more.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to remember what Brittany was there.
Yeah. I don't know.
Was Brittany there?
No.
Okay, excellent.
Are you sure? Anyone on there?
I don't mind the word. Okay.
Yeah, you might have.
Can't remember.
She wasn't interested.
She was not.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have a?
You can send it to,
Yeah, you can use CAC at danby.newyork.gov and you hit everybody.
And you don't have to be in Zoho for that.
No,
No.
right.
CAC.
CAC at danby.newyork.gov.
Not New York, it's NY.
it
NY,
doesn't
sorry.
recognize CAC.
NY.gov.
Oh, yeah, if you do CAC, it won't recognize it.
CAC.
It won't work if he's not in Zoho. He's got to do each person individually. She's right. That's, he's right.
Yeah.
Because CAC is a land-based, what is it called? It's an abbreviation, but it's a land-based.
You mean,
I thought
I think you could,
I've done it.
I think you could send an email from wherever.
Yeah.
How will it recognize that
Okay,
list?
I'll find out my group.
How will it recognize that list?
It's a construct, you know, within our.
Within
you know,
the system here.
system.
Right, so you have.
So if you
to
send
be
an
on
email,
Zoho.
like people could send email to, you know, town board at
No,
danby.ny.gov and the whole board gets it.
It does
Whoever's
not
on that
come up.
list.
I'm off.
Who's ever in the group.
You're in your regular email system?
Does not come up. I've received emails from. all
Yeah,
sorts of
so I
people.
mean, you're from Hotmail or from, you know, from
For instance, I
Gmail or wherever.
CAC member, but the CAC acronym, not really an acronym, the CAC hyperlink doesn't bring me to anyone else. To anyone. Oh, and it's just accidental that it brings it to you,
Right,
because it's got you as a CAC member.
okay,
So
all
I'm not seeing.
right.
If you send an email to cac@danby.ny.gov.
Okay, try it. CAC at Danby.
.ny,
.gov.
.gov,
Why?
Everyone's writing
Say
an
again?
email
Dot
now?
NY?
ny.gov.
Okay, so I'm just
So
gonna
we
call
all
it test.
have everyone's
Yes.
And I'm not putting
alternate.
anything in except my
Yeah.
signature.
Okay.
3 seconds. Unless she's got a filter of some sort.
I could look and see.
That's, but I we
Does
can
she have
still
any
share the email.
filtration?
Yes,
She can still share.
yes. Anything
It's
that-
not for, I get it.
Anything that we do business wise has to be done on a government email. on our
Supposed to be anyway.
Ooh, it worked. You're right.
Yep, there it is.
Totally wrong.
Yes.
I
All right.
love that. I'm totally wrong. Okay, so it recognizes that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll if you have put out another copy of that whole list of people, with phone numbers and everything.
Thanks.
We have not required our committee meetings to be public.
Wait, this is.
No.
Getting together and doing business?
Well, the thing is that this is more or less an advisory group.
These subcommittees, we've done this.
Right,
It's not a subcommittee.
And,
Not the planning board.
right, and it would, and what they come up with would come back to this group, and then it
So
goes
we're not
to the
allowed
town board.
Decide anything.
Just thought I'd ask a
No,
question.
that's a.
No,
great
that's a good
question.
question.
And, I asked it one time way back when we were doing all the subcommittees for zoning. And then, David said something like, this is not a committee work, even though there are committee members on it, even though you're submitting information to the planning board, to the planner, it didn't matter, so.
Okay, the committees are basically okay, but if we had a majority of the council present at one of these committee meetings, like if it was 5, then, that argues that you've got a quorum of the membership.
Only if you were discussing council business. What happens if you met at a party and you were chit-chatting about?
Right, it happens, yeah.
Or
If you're,
something that had nothing to do. with
Okay, kids,
this is true, yeah. right.
moving on,
Sorry.
it's all right.
Why would you?
CAC at danby.ny.gov.
And everybody will get it,
It's,
Okay.
accepting it.
something.
And then, our next item is update on conservation easement tax abatement criteria for acceptance. And, we have Gagnon, is how I
Yeah,
want
who
to say it.
decided that anyway?
I and this. I want to step in and be sort of a showstopper on this if it's okay, 'cause I have an update.
You go through.
We should be acting on it.
So, well, I know, I mean, I really feel like I feel like this is our top priority right now because we've told people that, we were gonna do it.
Right.
And, Joel got input from the lawyer. And in there was one comment about, I don't remember exactly his terminology, but it implied, okay, so I'll go back a step. It had this one thing about what I read immediately as forcing the owners to subdivide, in order to make it clear what acreage was being, abated. Was you know,
The land.
Show me the land anyway.
to map the land, right, but, and so I went into the county assessments, which was for any number of reasons, a real wake-up call. But, I mean, I understand why people with large lots and one house, no matter how fancy it is, are freaked out about what they're paying for taxes. Because the land in the town of Danby, I didn't do a thorough test, but I'm gonna tell you, I think it averages just undeveloped land at around $2,000 an acre now.
Mhm.
That's the number I've heard.
And, and I looked at a lot of random sites across the town. So what they have is the tax lot. And it shows where the houses and buildings and stuff are on, but the way that the county states the tax liability of the assessment, is they go property, 100 acres, $200,000. And then they have the overall real assessed value of the tax number lot. And so you assume that you subtract, the house, the barns, the outbuildings,
And
the
the land.
improvements of the driveway, but there's nothing about the land around. There's no defined area. And so with our easements, we're providing a definition to those areas. And the question is, without forcing these people to go through a whole subdivision process, how do we get the county, do we ask the county to accept our easement map?
I don't think so.
Well,
I don't
the
think-
county,
I don't think they
Even,
could.
it's a
well,
moot point.
even if we, use our, areas, the residential and active use zone is in the easement.
Right. It's a moot point because county's not interested. Right now, they just aren't interested. But what Joel said is exactly what I was gonna say. We've defined these easements, call them subdivisions already, but we're not subdividing the property for development. We've defined these zones. And you could say that everywhere there's a zone defined, even a residential and active use, is an easement.
It's within the
All of
easement.
that acreage is within the easement.
Yeah, but the abatement is on the land. And I
Right.
think that the county's,
And how do you tell them,
All you'd be able to do is say, the abatement's gonna be on all but the residential and active use zone.
no, I
No,
don't think
you
I
can't.
don't think he needs to do that.
Well, how does figured,
You would have it on it. Well, you would have it be on the amount that the county is already calling just the land.
Yeah.
right,
Okay,
Right.
that's easiest.
And it's easy, all they have to do is say, land improvements.
Yep.
Well,
No, I got
the
it.
land's what the,
I agree.
okay,
it's what the abatement
okay,
is on.
I get it. All right, well, if that's okay, if that,
Well, we need to talk to Jay about how we go about doing this.
but and then how does Finger Lake Land Trust do it? Because they certainly have different zones that they're surveyed and
Well, yeah, they
recorded.
do survey them, but again, the whole property is in the easement.
I don't think you need to talk to Jay at all.
Well, yeah, we
The
do. 'Cause-
rules that she's talking about are the rules that I used when you guys asked me to
Yeah.
come up with numbers.
Yeah.
They're very clear.
But what we need to talk to Jay about is like the timeline for implementation and how we actually mechanically go about qualifying properties for inclusion.
Wow.
Somebody approaches us and says, yes, I want to be in. What do they need to do in order to get the county to include them in at that, the land part of their easement as, exempt to the extent that we.
Why do we need to do that when the county isn't offering any exemption? This is a town exemption.
Well, because we have countywide assessment, if we had town assessment, the town assessor would do this for us, but
right,
we have countywide assessment, we have to work with the county assessment department in order to implement the
And you
abatement.
think you're gonna convince Jay to say, okay, I'm gonna look at your easement maps now and use those as part of the basis for my assessment?
No, all they have to do is know, all he
can't.
needs to know is, of all the easements that are in the town of Danby, some of which are FLT easements, some of them which are our easements, which property owners want to participate in our abatement
Yeah.
program. And depending on whether they have a permanent easement or they want to negotiate a temporary easement with us, that if they got permanent easements, then they're entitled to 90%. So it's
Right.
a pretty good deal. They ought to do it, but we
Well, then
don't,
what do you want Jay to do with that information?
he has to basically exempt the property from the town tax because we send out the tax bills, but it tells you what your liability is on the bill. So, they essentially create the bills for us.
I didn't understand.
Right.
Okay, fine.
When the easements are filed with the county, doesn't something happen then?
well, there's no abatement assigned to
There's
it.
no abatement. Right now,
But
there's
then you're
no,
not asking him to play with the map at all. You're saying you're gonna ask him to abate 90% of the property value, of the land
of the
value.
land value
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
those for participating
Fine.
properties.
Okay, okay.
That makes sense.
And what we need to work out with him is, by what time do we need to get that information to you so that they can participate next year?
Yeah, okay, all
'Cause they-
right. So, are you in, a relationship with Jay to which you would make an appointment and go and do that, or?
Yeah, I could talk to him, or we could have
I'd be interested.
a meeting,
Yeah, I wanna hear. I'll be quiet, I promise. I just wanna hear what he has to say.
Okay.
I'd like to be there too, if possible.
Yeah, so there's two things going on here. We need to meet with Jay in order to talk about a timeline for implementation
Right.
and what the process looks like. But we also need to determine what are the criteria going to be to participate.
But we don't need to do that with Jay.
No, we need to do that. We need to do that.
Right, so I would argue that if we have granted, or, I don't know that that's really the right prop, that they grant to us an easement. They donate an easement to us, but
Yeah.
if we have reached an agreement with a property owner for an easement on their property, then they're eligible, And
if they want to participate.
if they want to participate, and it's just a question of,
Well, they're eligible they're potentially eligible, I guess I would say.
yes, and so are we then, we've already granted them, we've already worked out, an easement with them. How can we
Or
possibly,
others have.
or someone has, the town, there's an easement that's been approved by the town. How, we can't renege on that and say that your property's not special enough. We can't make a qualitative judgment on those
Everybody
pieces of
else is
property.
grandfathered in. That's the deal. The criteria will be for future.
So we're now going to do a qualitative,
And I think what it's going to amount to is basically a simplification of what's already in the template. High natural value, high exceptional value, something like that. And specifications of 3 or 4 of the details that comprise each of those. And I think the best way to do it, again, because I think some of you are writers, I'm a writer, and some of you are interested in this already, is just for 4 or 5 of us, whoever needs to be, to meet in here for half an hour or maybe an hour and just hammer out the terminology of the criteria. I think we could just do it in a half hour of like a poster session in the old days before we used Zoom.
okay, so the process is, the property owner and the town have come to an agreement for, and the town has, accepted an easement from them. And then the next step is they say, okay, we want to participate in this tax abatement
No,
program.
I'm sorry. So easements should have criteria.
This is for 10.
Oh, yeah,
This is right. So
but that's not for the town board, that's for us. We've been
Well,
talking
it is-
about
it is-
providing,
I mean, we're working, we do the legwork for the town board, but essentially it becomes a judgment on the town board's part, whether or not to
The
accept
issue is
any.
gonna be-
okay, so this
Betsy
is
just said it under her
guidelines
breath.
for the town board, and they're approving an easement
Right.
that is coming to them.
Right.
First of all,
Okay.
Betsy just said something really germane. It's the temporary easements that are a problem. If someone comes in and says they want an in perpetuity easement, we look through it just as the CAC, forget criteria. And we look at our template and say, oh yeah, high natural value, high exceptional value. This is good land, we want to make an easement, and they want in perpetuity. That's the end. There's no need for some sort of special set of criteria or a template. But if someone comes in and says, I want a 5-year easement, what we've decided is the amount of work involved.
It's gotta be at least 15.
So that's where the template should trigger. But I think that the template should trigger for all right at the beginning. And
Right.
it'll just be a rubber stamp for someone who wants something in perpetuity for 20 acres that's interesting land. We'll
Okay.
say, yeah, obviously, this is going to be an
All
easement.
right.
And then all easements are eligible for abatements, because that's the law. That's what the law is going to be.
Right.
And they're eligible under the time
It's just
period
time period, and
and
that's it.
percentage.
Percentage.
Exactly. So the trick is just to get a quick little criteria. And the point of the criteria in the first place, having a set of criteria, is that you don't end up with people suing you. If they want their little 5-year easement and they feel like they're justified, you say, we've had this system in place. It's a lot of work for Danby. You even have that as part of the preamble of the template. Because this is a lot of work, I know you wouldn't use that wording, but you'd essentially be saying,
Right.
because there's a high cost, we want the benefit to be real. Here are the criteria for the benefit. And I think we could get together and hammer this out in 3/4 of an hour,
Okay,
okay?
Yep.
Anytime you want to do it. I mean, in the next week, let's.
So,
okay.
so what I'm hearing is that, one thing you said that's not my understanding is that, any easement property is entitled to participate. There can be criteria for participation in the tax abatement that are different than, whether you have an easement at all.
Those are specified in the law.
Well, they are, but remember we had the misunderstanding about we could
Right.
choose,
Yes.
pick and choose. What Guy basically said was you're picking and choosing doesn't happen in the law. It happens in the policy for participation.
Right.
So,
That's essentially what he's saying around the edges, that he gives the imprimatur for that, for what we're writing. And that's what you're talking about. That
yeah, but then, normally, and up till now, it's rare that we would decide that an easement isn't. Let me back up one more step. The only time we've ever rejected an application is if we thought the property was too small to warrant the amount of effort to craft the easement, because our criteria otherwise are pretty minimal for participating. We're trying to protect open space, and most any land will work. It doesn't have to be special to be worth saving. So given that that's the case, I think probably that might end up being the same criterion for whether people participate in the tax abatement as well. Is the minimum size, unless it's really special.
Right. I think that's true, except that what I keep hearing around the edges from board members too, and I don't just mean Leslie, I mean just chit chat with them, is this idea that a 5-year easement or a 15-year easement, it's.
Well, 5 is off the table because the state law starts at 15.
So it's almost not an easement, and the reasoning for us as VAC was the amount of time or effort involved in crafting the easement.
Well, we could. I mean, it's not unreasonable to say, because it's so much work to set the easement up.
We would want a really special easement.
If you're going to go for 15 years, your property better be special.
That's it. That's the essence of the template.
Okay.
You just said.
All right.
You just summed it up.
Yeah, please write it.
No, I've got that. I know that.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Well, I'll jot something down and I'll send it out to everybody.
Yeah, because we need it, because I know of 2 property owners who are, being able to do the tax abatement is, they're moving forward with an
I'll jot it
easement
down
as
tonight or
contingent
tomorrow.
on it.
I mean, we've hammered this out. We know what
Yeah,
everybody's
okay.
sort of on board.
All right.
So we could say, you could do 15 years, but your property has to be kind of special, and maybe it's at a certain minimum size as well.
I have a piece of paper.
Bring a notebook, but this time I'm just running out of the top. Let's do the pen for 1 second. So tonight or tomorrow?
So it could be 2 criteria. It could be special or a minimum size.
Yeah.
If you've got at least,
The minimum size is easy.
well, we have to decide what that trigger is.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, if it's a 20-acre property, are we good for 35 years? Or does it have to be perpetual in order for us to be interested at that size? There's going to be some sort of in between.
Yeah.
At 15 years, it better be special. What's the next category? 25. It doesn't have to be as special, but it's got to be at least a certain size.
Sliding scale at the discretion of the CAC.
That's,
But that sounds kind of arbitrary, doesn't
yes,
it?
it does.
What is?
And,
No, it could-
On parcel landowners that are neighbors.
Yeah, no, we have.
We haven't,
we never have.
well, no,
That well,
don't
you
say
probably
never.
have.
It has been talked about in the past, where if you do an easement, it's nice to approach the neighbors to see whether they'd be interested in doing one also. You can't lump them together into one easement though.
But you'd be more interested in doing an easement for a small parcel if the neighbors are also interested in doing an easement.
This
because
is true.
then it's expanded
Yeah,
to a larger-
yeah.
Right.
In fact, that's, well, and when there's some discretion in the matter, those are among the criteria that the LT has. One of the other one is adjacency to protected property.
That's the contiguity. I mean, she's right. That's the whole idea of
Yeah,
a greenway or a jigsaw puzzle or
Right.
contiguous. And well, necklace.
so, a property you might not otherwise be interested in, if it's adjacent to already protected land, becomes a worthwhile addition.
Yep.
Only thing with that is if they were separate small enough, we have to do separate monitoring for everyone. So I-
This is true.
And I'm saying, and I have some neighbors that maybe would want to do something like that.
I'll bet we could get around it, Catherine. I mean, I bet we could, because it's our schedule, we could
Let's schedule them all together.
schedule them all together.
Yeah.
I'll
And
bet
that would make sense, as long as they would require a set report for every each each small one.
That's
You're right, actually. You're right.
True, but it's not that big a deal. It's only a one-page deal.
It's a checklist.
Yeah.
You know, for the.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. The goal is to research the plan, and that's one of the things that makes people be able to do it. Then
Why not?
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
Okay, that moves us on to easement monitoring.
So before we leave that,
Oh, okay.
what we're talking about is having to, have another, a meeting, right?
No, let me just start off by writing this up, sending it out tonight or tomorrow morning,
Okay.
and just saying, here's what we all talked about. Here it is as a paragraph. Do we need to, can you all comment on it now? Do we need to sit down and hammer it out?
Yes,
Okay. And I'll just-
Maybe we can make
Yes,
it, maybe
'cause we
we
might
hammer it
just
out in
get
back and forth by email.
right, let's get it done. If,
Let's get it done.
great.
Although we also need to talk to Jay. But
Well,
that's
we'll
gonna be,
go to him, yeah.
that's gonna be, that's a separate thing, you know, to get criteria of participation and
Yeah.
the process for,
Well, that's, you gotta do that. Okay, so you're on record now. You're gonna set up a meeting with Jay. Don and I are kind of retired, so we could probably just come to whatever meeting you set up. It'd be nice if
You
you
wanna
checked in with us. Yeah, he said he wanted to. So we'd like to come along.
okay. So
Great.
the charge is for me to set the meeting with Jay.
You got it.
Yeah, because that's, you're the ones who have harder schedules to work out.
Yeah. That could be a Zoom.
Could be
It could be a Zoom.
that could be a zoo. That would be easy enough. You're right. I thought you said that could be a zoo, and I thought, wow, it's getting hip, man.
All right, easement monitoring.
All right. Well, I'm making a note of myself.
All right, I'm guilty of not having done anything about working on the support packet. But I am, I can redeem myself a little bit by saying that I did reach out to Ann Stork today. To ask her about working with Ithaca College students, as a possibility. And then, Ann's an environmental science professor at IC. And she was in my cohort in grad school.
You reached out to her about what?
About, thinking of a way that you could get college students involved in actually doing the monitoring walks. That's as far as I got with that. And Catherine promised to me that she was going to, come up with the letter that will go to the current easement holders and then in the future to new easement holders, basically telling them we're on our way and not asking to set up a time and date to
Right,
do
just saying,
these
you know,
things.
it's gonna happen on such and such a day.
Right.
Welcome to come along.
I did send, I called the Delaware County, which my family, the big conservancy is in that. And they sent me permission and letters, which I sent, you can see them, they're really short.
Great.
And we discussed, the whole thing about what happened when somebody said you don't have any right, nobody would be. And they also suggested one thing for, that we might think about, and we could, it doesn't have to be fancy, but some kind of badge that we could put on our clothing.
Yeah.
You know, some kind of. thing
Or
that
a card or something that we could carry.
Something that shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the suggestion is it shows the logo that they, you know, you can have one and you just pin it on whatever you have.
Yeah, or.
I think we should have hats, official hats. Do we wear?
Are you joking?
I'm not joking.
Good, right, that shows.
A hat it shows and it's something that isn't related to a particular season or anything.
Well, and a badge is less, I think a hat is less,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and it should be orange.
Right.
That's-
Also suggested, they
Good
also have a magnet that they put on the car.
Ooh.
That's a little more costly, but it is
Yeah.
something that, you know, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
because
No, it isn't.
Official.
But you
On
can
the side
do,
of the road.
you can do a quick and dirty, it doesn't have to be an expensive one for the car. You can do that pretty cheap.
You can do it for
Like
Staples, for
something,
example.
Yeah.
Use a double-sided tape.
Yeah, yeah.
Cause I have to do that all the time with consulting, you know,
Uh-huh.
there's this person parked here with this, even it doesn't matter, I've alerted everybody and their brother, we're gonna be out there, you know, so it's
good to just announce yourself.
Did you use a magnetic sign?
I had that, we've got the stuff we just put in the window. I mean, I learned long ago, I was at a big county park in San Diego. And I had everything on my, truck in the front window and I forgot and I put the sunscreen in front of it. And the next thing I hear when I'm in San Diego, the police helicopter landing next to my truck. And all of the, I mean, I did have smaller things on the back. Go read it. And they were all pissed off. You didn't? I was like, yeah, I did. There's a sign, but no, I'm not some illegal squatter terrorist. Yeah, so.
Right.
Yeah, I actually like the idea inside the window, because I do know bags. Nice trophies.
Yeah, you just.
Yeah.
Vehicle, yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and an email or phone number you don't mind people using.
Now we need a logo though.
Oh, we have.
Put on
a
the
logo.
hat.
Yeah, what's wrong with the
We have
logo?
that From the sign.
Why don't you want the logo? on
That's
your
true,
hat?
we could do
I
that.
want the logo on my hat.
Yeah. Does it look like that? I forgot.
The town.
It's got
No, the
a tree and a,
Barn or
yeah,
something.
tree and a town outline,
Is there a cow?
and a barn. No, there's no cow. Maybe there's a cow, yeah.
It's on our signs though, right?
Right, yeah. And so we have the graphic for it. All we have to do is give it to the hat maker. Okay, great, thank you.
Who's gonna arrange that?
Who's gonna what?
Who's gonna arrange that?
Where's the budget?
We've got some money.
Okay.
I forget, I'm not sure how much it is, but
If-
that's relevant right now.
If we
because we're
get the
putting the budget
adjustable
together.
back hats, we just need
Yeah, right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Well,
we get 8 of them.
Yeah, well, maybe we should get 10.
10,
and we'll have-
okay,
I got one.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
in case
get
we
one.
actually do get more help.
right. I'll find out what I'll get the,
Figure out,
I'll
where
work
to
on
get them.
You
You probably,
don't need those stinking badges.
Don probably knows where to get the hats made, right?
do you?
Oh, there's several cheap places, like
Yeah.
Vistaprint and places that have deals. I
Yeah,
don't know, but online is,
A good Chinese.
and yeah, when you, and
And you're gonna have to get them for your monitors too.
well, if we get them.
Should say inspector on it.
And volunteers.
Yeah, okay, well, we can leave the hats here
Oh,
and they could be picked up.
yeah.
I see.
I'm not on somebody.
All right, I'll get
might need
prices
more
for 20 hats.
Maybe we should investigate her prices.
Yeah,
See what,
okay, gonna do it. All right,
so put down that you're looking into it?
yep. I will do that.
Get that, Betsy?
Before we move away from it, if you all would just take a look at the letters that they sent, they're really simple and they just.
Yeah. Yeah,
Also, can we all put our emails, alternate emails and phone numbers, just so I have them and I don't have to text Corbett every time I need you?
Betsy published a list.
Yeah, you can only.
Did she?
Yeah.
You have the
You
whole
need to
thing?
share it with,
But,
Renee.
does it have the alternate
I
email?
don't think so.
It's not for, I don't want the Zohos, I want alternates.
It might have them, it might have them.
I don't remember.
Not for business communicating, but just,
Friendly.
trying to get hold of somebody kind of.
Mhm.
okay. Okay, update on ongoing easements. Has anybody worked on a project?
So Ben and I are working on this is gonna be very interesting. I really wish I could exclude Joel from any of it, because I know the way he thinks, it's just he's gonna get very wrapped up. Ben's got some very interesting ideas, and they involve approved activities on the most protected regions that the Haudenosaunee would be maintaining, and the description of the approval, the description of the types of activity makes it very clear that these are very, very small footprint, retractable activities. It's actually a learning experience for us. And that will actually be part of his presentation at the
Oh, it's at the night
So you
side.
hear him. But the point is, he's got this sort of, 2 or 3 page set of descriptions that he sent me and wanted some input. And I said, this is gonna be perfect. This will actually become, a new aspect of writing an easement. This will be an interesting easement, a somewhat unusual easement.
Sounds like.
We're in the midst of that. I said I'd bring it to the whole group, once we've got a rough draft, we can all look at it, and see what kinds of issues it poses. So that's Ben Altman and I, and it's fairly fresh. Andy Gladstone and I are in the midst of, where she's got a map, we've got a map that she's happy with and a set of descriptions for the 3 zones that she wants to put together. I just need to construct it. I've got a baseline report that Clara and I put together 2 years ago. And I know that one would say, Finger Lakes Land Trust would say, 2 years it needs revamping, and that's true, but to put together a rough draft for easement, I'm just gonna use that older baseline report. So I have something written up over the next week, maybe 2. She went away to Maine, so things got complicated. She's in Maine.
Great.
She overlapped with mine. So those are my 2. Mary is still totally up.
Yeah.
I sent her several texts saying the group seems to think that it is conceivable that there are no liability issues. We can involve the lawyer. It's a common situation. There's lots of town property that could pose the same kinds of threats, so the town insurances exists anyway for town property, and it may apply to town activities on an easement that the town has contracted with a private property owner. So, I've left all of these possibilities open, and I get no replies. So I think she's
not well.
well, I think that Henry may have been looking for an excuse, a reason to not do it. So I just don't think.
Yeah.
So that's really.
What about, Brian Caldwell? He sent, he sent an email a few weeks ago saying, what's next? I expressed an interest, nobody's contacted me, and I replied saying, John, who was going to do this, is in Maine, but when he gets back, he'll get in contact with you. And I'm sure I sent that to you, so, but that hasn't happened.
No, he hasn't gotten back to me.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
supposed to get back to him.
it's your turn, so to speak, because he reached out, you were in Maine, and I said, well, when John gets back, he'll be in touch.
And the other one that I know about is, Judy Abrams has a landlocked lot, in toward town on Macaranian Road. Macaranian Road, out, all the way out at the very end of it. And, she had conversations with the Finger Lakes Land Trust about it at one point, and it didn't really fit into what they were interested in. And then she reached out to me because she heard about the tax abatement, and I made it clear to her that that was only gonna be for the town.
But she was interested in doing an easement with FLLT. I mean, we could certainly do an easement for her anyway. With or without, tax abatement.
Right, well, her, so.
Was that her motivation?
Her motivation is to protect the property,
Okay.
which is why she reached out to FLLT in the first place.
Yep.
But then her secondary motivation is that she's paying taxes on this property that's landlocked, and she can't even sell it to anybody except a neighbor because there is no road frontage.
She doesn't have an access easement?
She has no access easement because of a problem, because the lawyers who did the last transfer of property left it out.
Wait.
Wait.
You gotta be able to put it back in somehow.
Well, yeah, well, it's gonna cost her a whole bunch to put it back in. Plus, it's a nightmare for her.
Sounds like.
And it's been going on for years. Apparently, the land trust is now again interested. And if they are, that would be
Helicopter
great,
ended.
because if she got an easement with them, would she get more? Is there any abatement that goes on? Well, the land trust would buy it, right?
No, not if it's an
They
easement.
don't buy all of theirs.
They don't buy them
Lots
all.
and lots of-
They don't,
Oh, yeah.
many.
they sometimes buy agricultural easements.
And so, yeah, so it's not clear to me. I mean, if the land trust bought it, then her day would be done. She would be thrilled all
If
the
they
way
bought
around.
it, it would be to make a preserve out of it.
Right,
Why would they do that for the landlocked property?
would to add to something else.
Right, if they've got another one, that's the question.
Yeah,
If they aren't gonna do that and they only wanna do an easement, then they can have that easement, but then we can also do an easement, and that she would get some tax break on.
well, yeah, but if
It would
she
only-
did an easement with FLLT, that would qualify for participation in our program. Doesn't
Oh,
have to be,
okay.
doesn't
So
have to be
either
our
way-
easement.
Either way, if there's an easement on it in the town of Danby, she can
Yeah,
she can get a tax abatement for it. And that's gonna help her, but, you gotta, after having realized that these properties are assessed at $2,000 an acre, and it's more, I'm sure, on that road because it's closer to town. It's that simple.
Mhm.
But there's no access.
But there is,
yeah, if it's landlocked, that would make it worthless for sure.
pasture land is worth $2,000 an acre. I've seen it said,
It's landlocked.
but the landmark part, yeah.
That's definitely gonna decrease the value.
How many acres is it?
78, I think. It's
It's a
not
good
small.
sized chunk of property, yeah.
Or 74.
If the helicopter in.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. So there's a lot of issues with this property.
Yeah.
But she reached out to me and I'm trying to talk her through it.
Yeah.
Now, if FLOT does an easement on the property, I gather there's no dwellings on it.
Nothing.
They'll want to include in the easement a development right.
Right,
They don't do it without one, at least one.
right.
Um,
And if there's no frontage, then they can't develop.
well, the frontage is no longer a requirement. But access is. But, we could, but we could do an easement on it. We do not require that there be a development right associated with it. We could, but we haven't. I mean, neither has it been an issue, but, and
As far as habitat is concerned, it's even better that it's landlocked.
Right,
it's okay to tell landlocked.
Right, but Catherine has the point.
It's hard to monitor if you can't get at it, though.
Right.
Um,
you would have to get something in.
gotta be an
and I-
access easement someplace.
there is, one of the neighbors is, very supportive of the idea of having it be,
Mhm.
perpetually protected.
Maybe they'd be willing to grant an access.
And they
easement.
probably would grant
Yeah.
an access that would be, usable for monitoring. That would have to
Oh, yeah.
happen, yeah.
Right.
And it is at the end, the dead end of it, so parking isn't an issue, you just park there.
Is this land not being used for anything?
Nothing.
Oh, what's her name again?
Abrams.
Her first name's Judy.
Mhm.
You should take a glance at the county rolls again and see whether that $2,000.
I'll see what the assessment is, yeah,
That.
yeah, I will.
Interesting.
I'll check Judy's land.
And the point is, without the access, it can't possibly work.
Yeah, well,
In terms of the county assessment,
yeah,
they're assessing in terms of resale value.
Yeah.
And if there's no access, it has no resale value.
yeah, well,
What
Well, that's not
plans
quite
there
true.
for
Yeah.
access?
Well, that's,
If it's sold.
Jay would take care of that anyway.
uh-huh,
Well, sure, it looks like on the map that the road goes right to it.
it does, sort of,
Green and road.
but there's like 150 yards or something that, got split off to another property, so it doesn't actually connect.
Doesn't quite make
So
it.
that piece of the road, we've got another one, the Petron Hollow is the same way. It looks like the Petron Hollow Road continues to Durfee Hill, but it's actually owned by Boda and Schwartz.
Yeah, I mean, it might even be as little as 150 feet.
Yeah. Even though.
I remember dealing with this,
Yeah.
I remember dealing with this mess at the planning board level.
Yeah. Years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe the town can buy it.
I think that's.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
The guy that was.
okay,
The
all right.
snowplow turnaround was part of
Yeah.
that, part of that,
It's not voted
questions
on
about that.
one side, but it works on the other.
A snowplow turnaround was part of the questions about that, because
You know,
it's at the end.
just before, just before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to the property
Yeah.
that
So,
you just made a conservation easement on.
Right. Right.
Oh, is she?
And I don't think it's owned by.
There's three people.
I know him very well, but I was.
Where is it?
The guy that,
Didn't we have somebody else who was interested in working with you, Morgan?
Oh.
Wasn't there somebody in the group that was willing, was it Brittany maybe, who was good? For Ruth, yeah.
It's a teacher on
What
Howell.
other one?
So that whole piece of the road.
Easement, and I don't feel comfortable having enough.
Quite a bit further, to almost, to about here. That's private property.
Is it really?
100%.
You just need somebody else to be.
Now, it was
part of the
private
team.
property
Yeah.
25 years ago, but they bought the land.
So, one of us.
Eliminated the, it was no longer a town road anyway. Town has called it.
when do you need this to happen?
Exactly.
Whenever anybody gets that.
Yeah.
There's no rush.
Okay.
So did everybody hear that? We could have more than one conversation going on, hard to.
Hello?
no talking at the same time.
It's hard to
We need a
know.
volunteer to work with Catherine on, approaching, or somebody who approached her, that has an interest in, with an easement, but Catherine doesn't feel comfortable actually talking to this person through the whole process. So a meeting.
Basically need another person on her team.
I can do that.
Yeah.
So,
I
explain it
didn't
again.
say the name yet. I'm not
Yeah.
saying-
No, I don't need the name, but no, I don't need the name, but explain what's going on. They've approached you?
Somebody I know. I've had some recent events in Danby made this person think again about.
And now they won't.
Okay,
Got me?
okay, good.
I'd like to work with her too, because I've never gone through a whole
Oh, it's a whole lot.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I'd like,
Okay.
if the timing is right.
Neighborhood.
I don't want to slow anything down, but if the timing is right.
No, I mean, it's good to have it.
I want one person to go with me to talk to this person first.
Right,
Hey, John's,
yeah.
Other things, more things, more.
Yeah,
things. It's
okay.
too much.
So once we do the,
Yeah.
we get set to do the baseline report, and once we get set to do the decisions on essentially
If
the,
the person even wants to.
right,
No,
Right.
we can bring other people in. How about that?
Yeah.
the time to bring the other people in is when you do the site visit.
Right,
Yeah,
that's the deal.
yeah.
Especially when Don is a forestry expert, et cetera.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the other person that other people will go on is Ruth, who's Sherman. She knows what's going on, and I mean, Brittany and I'm certainly not the one who should be doing this. But Ruth,
Not the fruit.
and she's the best damn thing.
Mhm.
Did you go to this?
Yeah.
You mean that fruit? No, that's not my writing.
Okay,
So it sounds like Catherine and John to start with.
right.
Yeah.
Got
it. You can see what, you get green lighted from there.
Okay. Well,
There's one-
great.
There's one more.
Oh, there is?
Yeah. I spoke to, Greg, our new planner, about the butcher.
Yeah, right.
Easement, and, there seemed to be radio silence on the matter.
Mm.
So I asked him to send them a letter, basically saying, are you still interested? Just so we know where we are. And, I'm the new planner, this is where, we have a proposal, if you're interested in following up. So I don't know if he's done it yet, but that's, I didn't want to drop it,
Right, yeah. It is one of the properties that I saw when I was browsing around, on the listings. And
Yeah, nice
it's
of doing.
up there for $1 million. And the photograph, it looks like, the renovations that Jonathan and I encountered 2 years ago now, I think, a year ago. A little more than a year ago, have been completed, at least from the outside. It looks like they're moving, getting ready to sell. So that
Yeah,
was.
so there
that
was
a
talk
good-
of subdivision, and it was not clear whether the subdivision was the one that we previously talked about, you know, cutting off
Right,
that property
3+
from the
acre lot.
whole thing, or whether they're talking about subdividing the larger thing into more pieces so that it's more saleable.
Okay,
I don't know.
I'll find out.
But that's what that follow-up letter is, aimed at ascertaining.
Super. Okay. Jonathan, have you had a chance to work on the trigger list for, the board and other units within the town? Like a checklist that they
No,
go
aside
through?
from that one thing I first sent out to all of you.
Yeah, okay,
uh,
that's all right. And then,
I think I'll just pull that thing up again.
Yeah.
Add a little to it, send it again.
Plus, I think, maybe that would be one thing that Greg might be interested in seeing.
Oh.
Plan. You might-
Yes, but it would certainly, it would, we should be.
Yeah, we could maybe get some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised we didn't invite him here today.
I did,
You did, and
Yeah.
you can't make it, you
No.
couldn't make it?
couldn't make it tonight.
I think it was on the 16th, remember, when the open house meeting, and then they rushed us, there was no way that I could get here.
Yeah, me too. I apologize.
Sorry about that.
For farewell to David West.
It was a nice gathering.
I bet it was.
I have a standing coffee date with him.
You could leave that on.
Okay, then there's the issue of the,
Oh, gosh, yeah.
the bear story,
Yeah.
which is delightful. And I take responsibility for being caught in the middle of miscommunication between between Renee and, Pat and Janice. I don't got directly involved, but,
Well, she was. Well, can I do a little
Yeah.
backstory on it? So it's actually more than just the bear. So backpedaling a little, because I don't know where everybody is for this. So it began with us going over our goals for what we wanted to do, and I heard a couple that I thought, maybe I can help with. So, and again, I'm sorry I missed the past 2 months, so we talked about this.
You're behind your back, we were talking.
So I heard the goal basically regarding easements, we want more buy-in, more interest, and we want more community interest for whatever else we decide is gonna be, is a priority. Not totally settled on that, but agricultural, other things. And so I said, well, that's something I'm familiar with. I've volunteered and been hired to, this is the big question for Sierra Club. I've done it for Audubon, for Wild Earth Guardians, for Democrats for Environmental Action political group, for California Fish and Wildlife. And the basic questions are usually a lot of overlap. How do we get not just more money, that's a whole other, but how do we get more members, how do we get more people involved and stay involved kind of thing. So even though we're not a nonprofit, obviously, a lot of the same type of, what we're asking for. How do we get more people? How do we get more traffic to the website? So let's face it, government websites, unless somebody has to look for something specific.
Yeah.
So I said, why not do a column in the newsletter? Because of all the different ways we have of interacting with the community, it's not really major social media outlets per se. Hearings, people come, something controversial or a big deal. And newspapers and newsletters, so perfect. Figure, even if it is small and stapled, that's the place to go to talk to the community. So how can I help? And so the research shows regarding environmental related issues, there's several categories. Wildlife, a big attractor. Gardening, botanical, farming, something to do with food, gardening wise. River sheds, of course, and something that's energy saving. So so I can do wildlife. For the paper newsletter. And I knew the minute you ask somebody to do something different in the newsletter, somebody might, it might be an issue like that. So I sent it, and then Pat did come back, the editor, and say there isn't enough room. And I thought, if that's the case, that might often be the case if they've only allotted so much room. So I asked her on email, is this because you might need to add a page? Will that add cost? Is that something we have to discuss? I don't know. She never got back. She doesn't seem to want to get back to me. So then it was it didn't happen. So I submitted again. The whole point is the paper newsletter will drive traffic to the website. Maybe not a lot, but maybe enough to make a difference. So they put in the URL and put it on the website. That's nice. But people don't type in URLs from a paper newsletter. They just don't, unless it's like
really simple.
abc.com, right? And even then, do you? I mean, I don't. So,
If it's electronic communication.
right,
you
if it's
get
a link,
hyperlink
and even when it's a link, they show that people often don't hit the link if they're not done reading something, and then they will go back.
What about tiny URL?
I'm sorry.
What about tiny URL?
Yeah, I mean, that's good, but it's still, people just don't go, no, I'm gonna stop, and unless it's something like, here's your tax refund, you must go here. So, so that sort of defeat, it's fine, I write anyway, and I don't need to do this, but I'm happy to write an article for the website, but that defeats the original purpose of driving traffic from the newsletter, and thinking, we really could take advantage of this newsletter to communicate, to do what we want to do better.
Yeah, I remember talking about this.
Yeah.
And what I remember is a little bit different than what you just described.
Is it?
Because I thought that what we had talked, because I knew that we're somewhat space constrained in the paper version, that what we had suggested was that the highlights of a longer article
Yes.
would be in the paper version, and then that would be hopefully enough to pique people's interest, and then you could say, much more information is in the full article, which is on the website.
Yeah, and that's an alternative, a short thing. It's, if you're competing for space, yeah.
Yeah.
But it has to be enough to still
Right.
generate that movement over.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was my thought. It was like, write short articles, and then like I did with this one, say, oh, now for the safety tips, go to the website. It's different. Or maybe if we're writing something about gardening, here, if you want more about those invasive species we talked about, go to the website. And also then you can link to photos that maybe we, can't afford.
Right.
And photos are a big one. So that was where I was going with that. And that's why I tried to explain to Pat and Janice, this is why it's a different thing. It's apples and oranges of the website versus the newsletter. And I also thought I realized that there's two newsletters.
Yeah.
And that sounded contentious. But can we look at it in a way that's not contentious? But if we want to just say this newsletter it's just government business, boom, then it's like an office memo.
No, Pat has told me that the newsletter is nothing but government business. It will hold no features.
And
But that's not anything that the board determined.
It's not the term government news, that's
The town, right, official town news.
and organizations that the town may support, like, that's why the West Danby picnic could be listed. Because the town supports the West Danby citizens.
That leaves a real hole.
I
said that leaves a real hole because I used to use the community newsletter to put things in all the time.
Right, okay, I'm pretty defensive about this because I've been heavily involved with the newsletter.
And what I would like to say is that if you, what I understood is acceptable and would be work is that under the CAC, not a separate article, under the CAC, we put the highlight there with the link. But if one person in the town decides that their articles should be posted in the newsletter, then it opens, and something that has to be discussed by more than just this group can't decide that one person on this group should have access to the town newsletter, because then we have many people who would like to have things in the town newsletter that are not as nice, and, you know, so it isn't something that's
So-
as simple as saying, okay, Renee, now write it.
Okay,
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. This is not about me, right?
It's
Right.
about one person.
It's not. That's the whole point here. The whole point is meeting the goal of driving traffic and meeting the goal of we want more buy-in, we want more people going to the website, and maybe then they'll go, oh, look, easements, oh, look. And so I don't care if I'm writing an article or not. It's something I can do. I think it would be good if we turn this newsletter into a real newsletter and not just an incredibly, mostly not that interesting government newsletter. Let's face it, it's not exciting.
But we don't
Okay.
have that capacity as a
Right.
CAC.
No, but the
Well,
town
no, we
board,
don't.
Wait, one second, I'm gonna finish my idea. I completely agree. First of all, I get what you're saying. It's not about you, Renee. Anyone could be writing an article. And your thought is, and several of us may agree with you, that whether it's under the CAC banner or simply something that's a driving force, a set of articles or an article in this newsletter could spur interest. Whoever's writing it, so your logic and your reasoning is perfect. You're gonna get a couple of problems. If the article gets written by one person over and over again, even if you don't necessarily want it to be you, but if people see a byline, a name, they're gonna, this is Catherine, they're gonna want their space too. Now, even if we don't have a byline, even if your name isn't there, a CAC space, it seems now to be used for more than, I don't know what the term means exactly, I'm just gonna quote it, government information, or a CAC byline that seems to be used for more than just basic CAC information, that's also going to spur interest by other people, and they're going to say they want to do it. Now, your main point, though,
why
the
not?
last thing you said, the important thing is that leaves us with a dry newsletter that maybe is all wrong, and your purpose here to kind of stir it up a little to make it a more interesting letter. That's a good, valiant purpose. The problem is the CAC has absolutely nothing to do with how that newsletter is structured. That's all town board. So you need to go to the board and say, look, here's what happened in the CAC, and this is important, and a few of us agree on this. The newsletter should be different, and you've got to present that to the board.
I know, that's why I'm spelling it out here, knowing this is recorded, but also knowing that this is gonna, but I gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, and
You guys,
after all, it
right.
originated as a CAC.
We are the
issue.
ones who will be more interested in this
Well,
aspect
it's
of
very
it.
important that you
So-
not start it here as if it's an offshoot of some decisions that we were making as a group. Our decision as a group was simply to put some stuff in under the CAC banner that might generate some interest in the CAC.
Well, we are the ones who theoretically are the experts on aspects of environment and conservation.
It's not our
So it would
purpose.
be-
We really need to get back to basics. We were, you should look at the enabling resolution. You know, our purpose is to work with the easements. This whole idea that we should also be advising, this is new.
No, the advisory, role of the group is right in the name, you know, that was first. The easement was tacked on by the town board and is a primary motivator for creating the
I'm
group.
sorry. Yep.
But, you know, CACs statewide have a list of, you know, A through H or whatever, you know, things that CACs do.
But then the point is, these are, I want to use the word constrained, but just constricted. These are purposes we have that we're moving away from for other very good reasons, to stimulate interest, to get a public that's interested in environmental science.
So how do you want to get people more involved in easements?
Well, this is a good way. I mean, I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, in fact,
It sounds like you're saying not my
No,
job.
I'm not. I did a presentation, a
So-
PowerPoint presentation that we made public that was on easements and it was engaged, it was designed just for that purpose. I've done that plenty, there are plenty of other ways to do it.
we've had
Okay, then
multiple
I-
programs.
We don't need to talk about this or do it if this is now not if this is not a goal.
Did you hear what I just said? I wrote up a Zoom,
Yeah, and I
I'm
don't,
sorry, a PowerPoint, and this
I
was
did
before your
hear what
time.
you
It was-
said.
It was a major sort of event that people.
So we'll
attended,
do
and then it was
PowerPoints.
put on. No, I'm saying,
well, see, I'm asking
Wow.
specific,
Renee,
specific,
we're all with you on.
look, let me finish my thought. I looked at a goal and I said, how can I contribute to helping with this goal? I don't need to do this. It doesn't always have to be me writing it. It could be
No,
other
I get you.
people writing it. It could be, as I said, I think it would also be useful to have an interest article that's relevant to Danby that has to do with forestry or gardening that people can draw information from. It's not just like, hey, this is a fun story. They are all relevant to specific things that are relevant to Danby. But if this whole newsletter changing it is an absolute, nope, you're
No,
not gonna do that, then that's our decision.
The idea of gardening or the bear or engaging people in an interest in the environment, these are lovely, they're admirable plans, but we've got a pretty big job trying to get people interested in easements. You asked me 2 seconds ago as if I thought we should be doing nothing. That's why I took umbrage, because I had written this whole frickin' PowerPoint put together.
There was no assumption like that. It was the question
My
in
point
and
was
of
just to
itself.
narrow our purpose here with a blurb. What's our purpose in a blurb? What's the goal? And, you know, you had some wonderful ideas for your goal, that it was basically to engage people and to drive them toward doing more involvement, or maybe an interest, or maybe doing more reading, just getting them wrapped up in looking at environmental issues. Those are all good, but we have to start with that we want people to be aware of the advisory. There's something like this, maybe, I'm not even positive I like this idea, but when the solar array that was contiguous with a wetland and maybe a fragile forest area needed some paperwork, needed us to think about it, needed some advisory stuff. You know, maybe that's something where we want the public to know that it's going on. But certainly, if we're trying to get people to come and say, I want an easement, that's something I want the public to hear about. So that's our purpose.
Yes, I'm aware of this. So my question remains, how do we want to tell more of the public that has not responded thus far about
That's the
easements?
hand up first.
So that's a question.
I think, Jonathan, what you should recognize is you have a person here. Not everyone wants to do the same thing on this committee, and you have a person who has certain skills, and she's asking, what can I bring to the picture? And she's found a spot where she would like to contribute. And it's, you know, not everybody has to do easements if that's not what their particular skill is, so, or interest. So,
But I'm not hearing that she's not interested in doing easements
She
too.
is interested.
It's,
Yeah, okay, Catherine.
I've got things I want to say.
I think that what we have had in the past that is successful and that you could do from the background that you're telling us you could do is, presentations. We've had Zoom presentations and they're recorded. So that we announce that they're happening in the newsletter, telling people that there is a Zoom presentation where you could do a series that way, where people can tune in, they're recorded and they're available. We have on,
We've got several of them.
Yeah.
plans.
So, right, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is, really comes.
She said
The issue is,
getting people in.
the issue is whether or not the,
town newsletter, which goes to every mailing
Everybody.
address in the town, can have a publication that's associated with the CAC, and apparently it can't, at least for the time being, until the town board has decided otherwise. And I didn't realize that when I purged this. And so we can put highlights. My compromise suggestion is that we put highlights of whatever anyone, and, you know, it's not just Renee. Brittany has offered and been interested in writing. I, would write wildflowers, a wildflower one in the spring. But the only, multimedia, that's not wrong, the only social media place that we have that we can work that through is indirectly through the Danby South Hill Facebook page. It's the
Yeah.
only thing out there.
Right. It need
A
not be
lot of
though.
people read that.
And a lot of people read it. Most of us, I think,
Visit
check
it.
it out regularly. And there's a whole lot of other, you know, it reaches a younger, group. It reaches people who are looking for contractors, you know, it's a big, open, nicely run space. And that's what we've got right now, you know, until.
But I get Renee's point, and here's a heavy duty.
I haven't spoken yet. Can I get a chance to weigh in here before we go back around?
Sorry.
There's several things that the constraints on the newsletter were not imposed by the town board. The constraints by the newsletter are basically imposed by Pat. You know, she decided to limit it to 8 pages. And those 8 pages are more or less dictated by the fact that if you go from more than 8 pages in this staple format, we can't get it through the machines that handle the mail. You have to go to the way that the Danby News is done, where you have full sheets and they're folded in half, and then you're not constrained that way. It's just a matter of adding more pages, costs so much more money. Personally, I think it's penny wise and pound foolish to send something to every household in town and not put in, you know, good stuff because you're space constrained. I mean, you know, it would be a great, I think that newsletter ought to be information central for those who want to know what's going on in Danby and read about cool stuff, including articles like what Renee wrote. But it's going to require a policy change at the town board level to effect it. You know, I think that as long as Pat's doing it, she's basically said, this is what I'm willing to do. It's going to be 8 pages, no more. Otherwise, I have to change the format. And although we did get away with 10 pages at one point, but she's also concerned about the cost, which is afraid of being criticized for, you know, it costs too much to do. Well, heck, you know, we've got a sunk cost already.
Sounds like you should just bring it up at the next board meeting.
Yeah,
Take it
how
out
do
of Pat's
you change
hand.
Well, it's the budget. It's the budget season, so it needs to be talked about. It also needs to be talked about the fact that we probably ought to be paying somebody to do it instead of having Pat a volunteer to do it. It's a lot of work for her, and she's struggling to do it. You know? So, you know, making it more work is not something she's looking to do, but she probably shouldn't be doing it. But the other thing is that in the beginning, when we first launched into this, and it is still, I mean, it's put on the web page. And in the beginning, Janice was augmenting the written version with you know, adding hyperlinks and stuff to it, and if I wrote articles that were too long, which is typical because I cutting my articles back because they're too wordy because I want to make them fit, which makes them drier, in my opinion.
It's true. It's tough. It's a tough one.
Yeah. You know, they're more interesting if you're a little bit more colloquial and you know, but then they take up more space, you know. So in the beginning, Janice was publishing the full version on the web version of it. But then after a few months, the word from the board was, we want what's on the website to be exactly what people get in the mailbox. So you know, that was the thing. You know, Janice backed off. So, okay.
That makes no sense.
That was the word from the board, and because Janice was doing it, but you would say, don't mess with it, put it in the way it is on the.
No, I understand now. I think that got butchered. The fear was that the editing was changing the content. If Janice was doing the editing, it was more of this difficulty the board was having with Janice.
It was more of the difficulty with the board was having Janice, but, she wasn't adding a whole lot, you know.
Right, but people wanted basically to not have her exercise any of that power. Okay, fine, go ahead, keep going, sorry, I understand now.
That's pretty much the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Now,
right,
that will
so-
change, so a number of things are changing come January.
Maybe, unless she gets to write it. Good
Yeah,
luck.
that's right, that would be the only way.
Totally possible.
Well, it's not the only way. The other way is if the referendum, is approved and the board were to appoint her to be the clerk.
Right, fine.
So
Then-
thanks for elucidating that, because that does help. I actually, most of this crossed my mind early on from the get-go, because like I said, I've researched this, not just like as a neat and nifty idea. I've done this for a long time, and so I've seen it run the whole game with, you know, giant groups and small groups. And when you ask to do something with a newsletter, it can be fraught. But it's also something we really could take advantage of. So I figured this is probably something that's gonna go to the planning board unless it goes smoothly.
It sounds like it could change if it's really a
So-
cat.
Evolution.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like it could change.
So-
in the middle of-
And what
Yes.
my horror of what's happened, I do think Pat is like, she's, you know, not talking to me, so she's clearly defensive about something. And it would have been easier, like I was saying, if it's cost, I have no idea, I need to know. But you didn't answer that question. So
Right.
maybe that's something else, obviously, we're gonna need to approach at some point, or even like the mailings, you know.
Mhm.
But I really think if your goal is better outreach for whatever reason, and by whomever,
Well, you've got two board members here, just ask them if they've heard you. It sounds like they've heard you loud and clear and maybe some agreement.
you know,
I hear you, but I am going to say that I think that it is a risky thing to decide that there's something from only one, external.
Yeah,
I don't know how
we should have that, we had, when we were funding the Danby News, there were submission guidelines and content guidelines.
everyone has to deal with
and there were
it, who has a
constraints.
newsletter.
Right.
But there's no reason why we can't use the same guidelines.
What we had before was one editor, in the case of this newsletter, even though everybody's subscribing to that, solely to Pat, that's not fair. She passes the things around to me, to Leslie, we send things back to Joel, she sends things back to Corbett, so I'm going to have to be defensive for Pat. right
Well,
now.
how would you know that?
Well, because what you could do is think that first, maybe the question was to be, if you couldn't get through to Pat, maybe ask somebody else, but to say that this is all because Pat wants to talk, it's not really.
I didn't say all. It's my mouth. I'm setting up a.
Okay, it's fine.
I'm sorry, but every time somebody says something that is slightly different, you engage back, and then you ask to let us hear you, I'm asking you to let us go. Let me say this, because maybe the problem is, now, right now, Joel and I are both here, we may not, Joel and I may not agree about this. I'm personally concerned about the kinds of submission requests that we might get. I'm concerned about that. And in the old newsletter, it was published by the community council. The current part from Ted is every time somebody says this is Ted's newsletter, he's defensive or he's attacked back and says it is not my newsletter, it is the community council newsletter. But the articles that are created and often
Right, they are his signature, right.
and he does put, if you look, there's a code in that thing that's.
Yeah, it's got the.
Yeah, we know how to figure out who, right?
Right. So, the end of it, is things that were in that newsletter before you moved here. So things that were in that newsletter that became more and more problematical. And that, we had other issues, so there were issues with the youth commission, with the same Danby Community Council, at which point the town board discussed whether or not to keep funding the community council. And so that is how the newsletter came away from the community council. So that's a short, dry history of how that happened. In the submission guidelines from the Danby News, the old Danby area news, but for probably 8 of these 10 years that I've been here. And during that time, I guarantee you, nobody else saw anything that was in that newsletter before everyone here saw it in their mailbox. And that was unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. But Pat, I do know that Pat does not want to continue to do this by herself. It is, as Paul and I think Court also mentioned, this is a not fun, hard job. And it is particularly hard for her to interact with us on the Zoho platform, so she's had to fight with that. We originally talked at the town board about having a newsletter committee, that was one, and the website committee.
Yep.
We tried that, and it didn't go very well, didn't go very far, and it just sort of faded away. We still need that, but we've also talked in last week's budget time, and it needs to be brought up again, that we need a job. We need a paid position for a newsletter and website. And take these problems that we're having, the ones that we're talking about, not simply who's editing it, who's sitting in the office doing, whether or not they like what the person is doing from the office, et cetera, et cetera. It's a thankless thing to be sat to be told what you have to do or not do. It should be a job that somebody has skills in and brings up to the town of Danby. And then we could maybe have a newsletter that could be on another format and an interactive one on the website, because it's, the reality is, as much as we like to think that these newsletters get read, that we've done informal surveys, and a lot of the people joke around about not wrapping up their old dead fish. They get it and they drop it into the trash. They don't even look at it. So they're not, it's not as effective to me, so.
Because,
No, it's the old newsletter.
No?
No. it's
just
the-
no.
Renee, what I was trying to say is that the same survey was about the old newsletter. It's the same remarks. Nobody reads it, because in that case, people got tired of the slanted views that were in it.
Right.
So some people are cautious about who publishes what and who writes it, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was the same problem with the old newsletter. And now I feel it's worth setting that.
Good. Thank you. That actually was good information.
Very good information.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've identified, I'm afraid, an ongoing situation that really has to be resolved by the board. For the time being, I think if people are willing to continue to write features, I can do a fun highlight thing in my couple hundred words that I get every month. At the end of it going, did you know, I can do the highlights, literally, the highlights magazine from the dentist's office.
Fine.
The CAC article,
Yeah.
the CAC article itself, I think, could be a bit longer.
Yeah, I can push that. I can add
But
an
Pat
extra
said it
100
has to be only
words.
200 words.
Yeah, no, she did originally, but
Did
she was, well, she's been learning how to do layout for starters. I mean, she's not her skill set.
Yeah, and let me just say, when you say it's not fair, I appreciate that. I come from, I don't know, because if she doesn't talk to me, I don't. That's it. No more complicated, and I'm not asking, and I appreciate that it's difficult.
Yeah,
But emails and not even,
there's
I
just a
try.
lot going
I
on.
think the point is, I try.
Yeah, you might, but what part of what Catherine said that I get is, if it wasn't working for Pat, should have contacted someone else on the
Well,
board.
she reached out to me and I reached out to Pat, and that's where the whole policy about the newsletter.
Then it was Pat telling Corbett, and
Then, and Pat was just like, you're not gonna do that, and I'm like, well, I have no idea.
it's like,
I wasn't privy to any of this stuff.
Sounds like it shouldn't be a fiefdom.
It's not a fiefdom.
I mean,
it's-
Pat fiefdom.
No, it's just,
Kind of is a big deal.
It sounds like it is.
and I'm not
Well,
claiming
yeah.
perfect communication. It's
Nope.
been one of those summers, right? So I did,
well, and right, that's the issue.
well, and I'll be the first to say, yeah, ideally, someone paid to do the website and someone paid to be edited, of course, but I wasn't even gonna go there.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
the
I didn't even know what
editor,
another page.
the editor always was paid
Yeah.
until we abandoned support for the Danby News.
Oh, okay, didn't know that either.
The
I thought it was just a printing cost.
no, it was, you know, the Ted was paid for putting the news together.
Okay.
And now he's not, but it's because the Danby Community Council, quote unquote, who's that? And two other people who do it.
Well, but if you want some proof,
But they decided to, continue publishing the Danby News.
if you want some proof for the value of what Renee is saying, it's the fact that Ted, when you cut all of his funding, found a way to make this thing happen anyway. He knew that this vehicle, that this mouthpiece was powerful. And if that's true, our mouthpiece ought to be improved.
Yes, there's no.
Whatever it takes, I don't mean CAC, I mean, the real town newsletter
Yeah.
ought to be beefed up to something serious.
Maybe.
This is the same thing that
somebody
happened when
should
the
talk
town, decided to move away from Ted being webmaster for the town. He took the town's website and has maintained it to this day as an alternative to the official website.
Okay, Betsy had something to say.
No, I was just saying that, I mean, it's an untenable position to have these two newsletters. And maybe somebody should talk to Ted. He didn't start taking an adversarial attitude to the town until, they took his money away.
No.
No, it just got a lot worse.
Even I was aware of that, I'm sorry.
I beg to differ.
I was reading his newsletter all the time and I never.
Well,
knew
it's not just his
this.
newsletter. Yeah.
I
okay.
was reading the community council newsletter all the time, and it used to be interesting and fun. And
Right,
and it had all the information that Renee, and I totally agree with her, this other one is boring, had in it. And, it has the news, interesting news. So is there any way of getting Ted to stop, is there any way to get
No.
rid of this dual situation?
no, probably not.
Give up anything he holds on. His modus operandi is to hold on to as much as he can, as long as.
Yeah,
Kind of
so
seems like it.
it's just up to the town to move past it, evolve above it, rise above it.
Yeah,
Well, I think maybe the role of the CAC is, that won't get us into any deep water or anything. In my mind, is that, well, okay, we're the experts on the subject matter, that's what we do. So at least we marshal our idea, our argument, whatever, if we have a cohesive one about what we would like as our goal of getting more easements, and just to be able to present it as like, here's what we're thinking to the planning board, not we must do this in our way
Oh,
and it's
like-
under our title, but hey, we're the ones who talk about this, so we had a thought about how we could communicate this better.
So when the discussion with the town board about what to do with moving forward with the newsletter, probably based in the budget conversation.
yeah.
So that everyone's got,
We can
come
say,
together.
this is what we would like to contribute if, as it evolves.
In the beginning, when we first decided to do the newsletter on our own, there was even a discussion about, should it be every month? Should it be on paper
Mhm.
at all? Should we maybe go just an electronic version of this thing? And it was decided that there are a lot of people who still rely on paper communication and that it's a valuable thing to have this thing mailed to people. And so we're still doing it. And, Ted feels the same way about it. Target the same way. And that's why, there's other alternatives.
You have to do it. Right. Well,
And now it might even be a bit of a different scenario. Granted, I'm not saying this is anything like a regular newspaper, I know, but as we know, a lot of like 80-something% of local newspapers are gone or
Right.
bought out by US News or whatever.
Right.
So that's a little crack in the door too for having.
There's very little coverage anymore
Yeah.
of the smaller towns.
Yeah, and I actually think if you go to like a communications department type thing, they will tell you that there's a version of small local media that not only survived, but that is reemerging.
Yeah,
And this is an
Tompkins
opportunity.
Weekly. Have you, have you talked to Tompkins Weekly? They do have local news, like Lansing has a lot of local
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, I'm like writing 3 books and I write for other publications, so that's on my list.
Yeah.
But, for sure, and I did an interview just recently with the Star Gazette and the Binghamton about another government wildlife issue and just learned there, like, oh, all owned by US News, and it's like, oh, that's why you all are sharing the same news app.
Yeah, and the TV stations are the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah.
Let's say one thing about this. I don't think that we should tell ourselves. If that's the case, I don't jump on. And I don't want this to be that you're the experts on these things. I think we're playing for.
Here. I agree with you.
But we have a knowledge base and a commitment, and we have experience. Let's just start with.
Some of it's good.
Oh, yeah,
Don't we?
yeah.
We have a reputed purpose.
We have a purpose, right? But we don't necessarily,
And a commitment.
right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Has there been a decision to add articles like the bear article though to the CAC portion of the website?
Yeah.
Because having information like that on the CAC website is all about, easements and conservation.
Yeah, it's there.
Are there gonna be more articles added to it?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Planning to do that?
Yep.
And more, I hope that other of those presentations, the whole thing that Betsy did.
Those are all up there.
Yeah.
They're all up there.
There's lots of things that are really fascinating and helpful.
Yeah.
And I hope.
Yeah.
Betsy, Brittany did.
A lot.
Yeah.
Betsy did some, yeah.
So
No.
the point was to try to drive more traffic to the website.
Right.
Yeah.
And the point is that people aren't gonna type in URLs, even if you put a little thing in the newsletter that's not, doesn't take up any space, and it says, bears, Rupert is back, go to the CAC website.
Well, we may start doing that.
I mean, we can always hope. The studies show it doesn't work very
And we
well.
can put the links into the electronic version.
That for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was the idea with reaching out, taking advantage of the Danby South Hill Facebook page.
Right.
Because it is an active social media
Right.
place.
And that's why my other goal was always to have a sort of informational or even photos or something else to pull, like, don't just read this article, look, we've got, like I imagined, something about local forestry initiative changing that maybe you want to write, or something
Yeah.
about invasive species, hey, did you know this buggers just showed up? All that kind of thing that's definitely relevant to the local.
And local,
Photos.
And
Right.
photos.
yeah.
Right now, and have those and welcome having photos, so.
So picture of Rupert.
I ask photos if it's, unless you want like Komodo dragons or something. I'm happy to share them,
Great.
you know, and I did ask Janice, I said, do you want to show me how to do this so that you
Yeah.
don't have to do it?
Right.
And then Cindy, that's it, her sister.
Yeah.
She contacted me back and said, well, I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
So, whatever.
That's fine.
I don't
Yeah,
care.
I mean,
I
initially,
don't want to burden them, but if that's the way they want to do it.
it's fine. Okay, kids. It's 5 minutes to 9.
Well, I mean, as a CAC, do we want to take some action on this matter with like a recommendation to the town board? I'll let Nikki take a quiz.
Yeah, we would, I think we need to hear that the town board has initiated discussion about something related to the newsletter, and then we send our letter.
Well, it could come up in conjunction with, we do the budget,
Right.
the CAC has a budget. We probably ought to have some goal on how much money's in it, and what we're requesting. And that hasn't really been solicited.
Yeah, you can just, the two of you could just present to the board some of this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're privy to it,
Yes.
so.
But I mean, but my reporting it and having the CAC talked about this and really feels this way because we have a recommendation or a vote or something.
Okay.
It carries more weight than just, Catherine and I, reporting.
And to begin with an understanding of what was the impetus of this specific.
Yeah.
Was it just like, hey, let's write about bears?
Right,
you know?
it's more like we've been talking about these, I'll draft it.
One of the impetus I thought was that when you said that this was one of your requests or your thoughts about how to generate people going to the website. That's what that was the original discussion, is how to get people to go to the website. Then this is sort of I don't know how it changed into having.
I don't think driving people to the website is the only objective. I mean, having an article, it's freestanding and doesn't drive people to the website. It's worthwhile as much as,
We just assumed we couldn't do that.
information. Telling people about nature so that they feel more connected to it is in itself a good start for them maybe wanting to protect their land by and by. Even just promoting good stewardship, whether without easements on their land is good for the town.
Corporate law is not about easements, that's stewardship. We had,
Yeah.
and we have, water, we have a relationship with the county water. And a lot more about that tonight, but there are other things that if conservation is the main word in it, and advisory is another big word in it, then the conservation, we should draw from some of the other conservation, like the soil regeneration we did. There are lots of different kinds of things, so.
Yeah.
And
solar.
Been pretty unpopular because people don't know about it. People make bad assumptions about it.
There's all sorts of stuff that could go in a CAC byline, under a CAC byline, I agree.
Right, and I have,
Can you send that letter across all of us, the thing you're writing?
yeah, I'm just
run it
making
by
a
all
note
of
here.
us.
Yeah.
And that's what was established from the get-go. The article and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but to have an article in the paper newsletter is for all the reasons we've discussed, that people read paper, and so that would say, and for more on this topic, like bear safety tips, like invasive species, go to the website, not type something in, but just go to the website. That was the impetus for the paper, to answer that question.
Right,
It's driving people to the website. They're not normally gonna be like, hey, what's the Danby? Yep,
Okay.
Can I make a comment here quickly?
Please.
And basically, it's just saying that it seems to me that some sort of a statement or an opinion coming from the CAC to the town powers that be, that we feel very strongly that a much better vehicle is needed to get a lot of this information out.
Right, without specifying.
And
it's-
again, the
Oh, yeah.
town
yeah,
board, et
there's nothing-
cetera, have their work cut out. I don't envy you folks, but
Right.
we can, as CAC, say, this is really needed.
Yeah,
And I think it's worthy of a discussion of costs and what's available. And can there be some external expenditure, you know?
yeah, well, that clearly Joel's already talking about, yeah, so,
You know,
and the
it's,
one thing that I haven't heard yet is, that everything that we would be talking about, it would be specific to the town of Danby. You know, I mean, it's like, what Rupert is, the local bear. This is not bears in New York State. This is, Rupert's in the backyard, you know.
the reason it's interesting is bears are now here.
Yeah,
But, and that, yeah,
they're back.
so, and I was cognizant that I won't find anything more about this, but
Yeah.
just really trying to pick topics that really have.
Our local,
Local
and writing something about, oh God, I'm not sure I want to say this, writing something about the timber harvest law. That would be a real challenge, because you still got to get it into 300 words, or that's the
like you
really
said,
hard
without
part.
being
Without
dry. Provoke you.
What we need is for people not to be afraid to learn more about what is in the law. We need to,
we can ask questions instead of making statements, yeah.
right, we don't need to say, we don't need to tell us the law.
Right,
We need to get people so that they're not afraid of us.
yeah.
That's what happened. They're afraid. Law, get away from me. That is what you're facing
Well,
in all of
Yeah,
it.
it's just law, get away from
Law.
it.
But you don't talk about, he wouldn't write about the law, he'd write about the need.
Right.
Yes, yeah, right. That's the background, the need, the reason
I
why.
have one about rehabbing, because it seems like no matter how much you talk about it, the majority of communities don't know what's out there until they have an injured squirrel.
Well, and yeah, I mean, Catherine could write something about her possums, and
But
yeah.
I'm not much with there either.
Well, but
Even-
you should write about your experience, not,
Informational, like,
Yeah.
here's what's available, here's what's not.
I'm more, at this point, more interested in the things that I think that, for instance, I don't think it is just about Danby. One of the most impressive things that I saw since I've been here in the 10 years was the water thing that was done at,
oh, yeah.
my God, and then, you know,
That was really
I will always remember this statement, and I can't quote it directly, but what Rick Friedrich said. When we were talking about it, he himself said, it is not just about Danby. It is about everything downstream or upstream from Danby when we're talking about some of this. And that, I think, that really was important to me, because I don't think we should be insular. I think that conservation matters to everyone, and we all.
Right.
Well, it's true, it's a matter of balancing that, and then somebody saying, well, that's not for us,
So tying it to,
I taught a course in reefs, in coral reefs, and my challenge was to connect it back to white kids in the US landlocked in the desert, and how is that relevant, climate change. So there's always ways to do it. It's more about approaching the problems of what are people accepting of as you were saying.
I think that the town, we have 2 more months of it, November,
October, November, December.
November,
3 more months of this. And I don't see that it's gonna change in those 3 months.
Probably not, it could
Because
change in
we
January.
definitely need to find somebody, we've been,
We haven't looked.
and we have, trying to think, how can we get a newsletter committee, editor, paid, so that we can get out of her, and she's not having fun believing.
Yeah,
I know, full well.
right, I
But we
mean,
have to, it wouldn't hurt to ask for interest.
yeah. In the newsletter.
In the newsletter.
Good idea.
Well, it might work, very part-time job opportunity.
We could look to what we had in the budget when we were funding it.
And then concert with that, also take advantage more of, since it's all we got is Facebook.
AI.
Yeah, using that a little more to generate, hey, little events and announcements, not,
Yeah.
that's a good, that's a rule, yeah.
This could be done as an in-house function with additional staff support. If we had the expertise.
Right.
Then we would hire.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it could either be done by staff, or it could be outsourced as it was in the past. It was always, the editor was always
I
somebody.
think it should be, I actually think it should be part of it.
It would be great if you could find the person.
Yeah, do it. Add a staff function.
Yes, moving on.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. We're only 5 minutes over. I would like to adjourn the meeting.
If you insist.
I learned that I could start and adjourn meetings on my own,
Yes.
only in the last couple of meetings.
If we're
and
done
so
with,
now
if we're
I'm
done with the
going to
agenda.
do it. I think this was a good discussion, good meeting, I think.
It's worth mentioning that, there are not very many towns that still do a town like. Yep. And even when they do it, it's usually not a monthly.
Yeah.
It's every couple of months or it's quarterly even. But
Yeah,
I'm fully.
I think it's reemerging, I think that
Yeah.
Yeah, next will be David Byrne.
David Byrne?
Yeah, David Byrne has,
Major efforts these days.
Yeah, well, you're reading what he wrote.
Yes.
Yes. I won't be here next month, but I will make a decision about whether or not.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Careful decision maker.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
No, good night.
Good night.
I don't, I bet those doors are locked, but, yeah, I think, Joel, can you get in to make a copy of that for that page? I can't. Yeah. I think Joel can make the copy of it. He has to say, he has the key to get back. Besides, I know that Betsy does have a contact list.